told me and my brother, I'm finna break y'all out of jail. And he left. And then next thing we heard a gunshot. And he come around there with a shotgun, and started opening the jail, saying he's busting us out of jail.
And we are about to watch the commutation hearing of a Louisiana man who back in 1988 with his brother and accomplice escaped from jail. Now, unlike what's happening today with the 10 inmates who escaped Louisiana jails, this escape involved murdering in cold blood the lone jailer. Now, I have been covering the escapees of Louisiana jail. There is a playlist below if you want to see that coverage. But what we're going to do is cover parole hearings that have involved those who have escaped from jail or prison. We have dozens of parole hearings that we have covered of those who have escaped, been recaptured, and then have faced the parole board. And in many cases, it does not go well for them. And many of these hearings are happening from Angola, the very place that these Louisiana escapees are being sent to hold their time now. So this is very relevant. Anyways, we are going to go back into the past to watch this commutation hearing, and I'll unpack it with details at the end.
So, Mr. Caston, you're here this afternoon seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in two different jurisdictions, Morehouse and Richland. In 1989, in Morehouse, you were sentenced to a 20-year term for aggravated burglary. Then in 1994, in Richland, you were sentenced to a life term for second-degree murder. Is that information correct, Mr. Caston?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Would you answer Mr. Freeman's questions?
Okay, Mr. Caston, how old are you?
55,
How long have you served in prison on this charge?
going on 35 years, sir.
35. Okay. So when were you arrested?
In 1988,
Okay, what's your educational level?
I achieved my GED up here at Louisiana Department of Correction.
Tell me about this offense and don't leave anything out. What went down? What went on?
I was in Lake Providence jail, and I was transferred to West Carroll Parish Jail, and I was placed in a 6-man cell with my brother and Frankie Bancroft and some other guys. We used to stay up at night playing cards and whatnot. And Bancroft, he had got out with trustee cell, and he used to come back and he talked to the guys and everything. And we, in jail, you talk about escaping, you're young and stuff like that. And time went on and he got out. And he would come back up there a couple of times, talk to people. Then all of a sudden, he never showed up again for about 2 or 3 weeks. And one night he come up there and he come back there in the jail and he was talking to everybody. And he was saying he was helping them fix the air conditioning unit. And he left and he come back again. He told me and my brother, I'm finna break y'all out of jail. And he left. And then next thing we heard a gunshot. And he come around there with a shotgun, and started opening the jail, saying he's busting us out of jail. And my brother and I, we left. And that was one of the most stupidest things I ever done in my life. And I was fearful for my life, my brother's life, and the other guys in the jail. And once we got him away from the jailhouse, my brother and I turned ourselves in the next day.
Okay. Well, tell me this, were y'all serious in y'all conversations about escape?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But you were serious about it, but then when it happened, you didn't want to do it?
No, sir, we was gonna actually do it with hacksaw blades. We had hacksaw blades, but we never discussed about what he done. What he said he was gonna done that night, we never discussed nothing like that.
Actually, he actually gave you some hacksaw blades, didn't
Yes, sir.
he?
Sir,
A chisel?
we had a chisel and some hacksaw blades that we was gonna actually use.
Y'all
And
never
that-
started using them? How long you had them?
Shoo, about a month.
Then
We had
never
them about a
started.
month.
Did you speak to him at all after he had gotten out of jail?
No, sir. He called up there and we was told that he called us several times, but they would never let him talk to nobody. And that night he come back to that jailhouse. It's the first time we seen him since he's been out.
You've taken a ton of classes since you've been in prison, correct?
Yes, sir.
What classes you got the most out of?
Oh, actually, all of them was very benefit, but I would have to go with victim awareness because it shows you about other people's feelings. And watching videos, you can see the pain and the suffering that these people go through. And it gives you a reality check that you actually caused these people this type of pain. And listening to their stories, it's like it messes you up just to see this, that something you had done, your action, but actually caused somebody this type of pain. And it gives you a reality check.
Okay, in your statement, you say that it was just as though you had pulled the trigger. Why would you say that if you didn't know he was going to break them out of jail, try to break y'all out of jail?
Going through the victim awareness classes, it makes you realize when you are involved with a crime, you just as much as responsible for it as anybody else.
But
And-
the problem I'm having is you said you wasn't involved with the crime, knew nothing about it. But yet in your statement, you say it was just like I pulled the trigger because I knew he was going to do it.
Well, I didn't know he was going to do that, taking Mr. Gatton's life. I did not know that, but I'm taking responsibility for my action. What I did that night, I left that jailhouse,
Okay. Looking at the community attitude, Judge Glenn Roberts is opposed. You had no comment from the other judge. District attorney was opposed, both district attorneys in both parishes. Sheriffs were opposed. Chief of police was opposed. Unopposed is your family, Vicky Bible's stepsister. Where are you gonna live? Where are you gonna work if you get out? What is your plan?
To work with my sister. She owns a farm.
Okay, where's this farm at?
In Maroons,
And where?
in between West Carroll and Morehouse Parish.
Okay, the victims are opposed in this matter. I think we're gonna hear from some of those. And you have a lot of family that's unopposed and then a ton of people, victims that are opposed. So what do you think this crime did to that family?
It caused them a lot of pain, a lot of grief. Something that
Did you ever use drugs or alcohol?
I smoked marijuana when I was young. It gave me a headache.
Did you drink?
Yeah, a couple of times. I've been drunk twice in my life.
So you're really saying you don't have a drug alcohol problem?
No, sir.
You had 15 write-ups. One was for contraband in 2017. What was that about?
Well, my mom and my dad died of lung cancer, and they had this security guard. He had a pack of cigarettes in the van, and I walked up on him, and I reached in there and grabbed him, and I started telling him these are bad for you. And then I threw him back in the truck, unbeknown to me that it was shakedown crew looking at me, and they wrote me up for it.
Okay. What about the 30W in 2019? What's that about?
2019. I haven't had a write-up since 2017.
See, but it might have been like 2015, maybe?
Sir, this day, I don't know why they locked me up. I was in Bass Dormitory, and they locked my brother and I up back in CCR, and they never, ever told us the reason why.
Okay, so you never had a hearing on that or anything?
Yes, sir, I had a hearing, but they just brought me in there and said they was returning me back to CCR, which was closed cell restriction.
Yeah. Warren, what do you have to say about Mr. Caston?
I can tell you that Mr. Caston has been a model inmate here. He has worked for our maintenance department for 10 years, and he's been doing carpentry for the last 2.5 years. He helped remodel Jetson when the women moved there. He helped remodel 7 buildings. He also worked on the governor's mansion detail, which the governor wrote a letter saying that he did exceptional work. He also did T4C. He has a plethora of Bible courses he has taken over the years. He has a correspondence course he took from the School of Christ. And I'm gonna go back to that 30W that you were talking about. The 30W, the 30W was the fact that he was high profile and escape risk a potential escape risk and security risk at the time. So they determined that he needed to go back to CCR, which is closed cell restriction, where we house inmates that are high risk. But he was released back into general population not too long after that.
I have questions.
All right. Mr. Rushay?
Yes, one question. Mr. Caston, good afternoon.
How you doing, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Caston,
Yes,
let's
sir.
let's revisit the escape when Mr. Bancroft shot the officer. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bancroft was a trustee at the time, and he asked the dispatcher, could he go back and visit with you and your brother? Is that correct?
He did that night, but after he
Yeah.
got out of jail, he never came back. But the night he come up there, he come back there to visit my brother and some other guys.
Okay, and what did he have with him when he came to the cell the first time?
Nothing. Nothing. He
He
just come back and talk.
Have a hatchet?
No, sir. He did not have a hatchet.
And you did not tell him, don't worry about the hatchet, to go get the gun or the shotgun out the truck
No, sir. I did not.
and shoot him?
No, sir. I did not. I didn't even know he had any guns at that time.
Because so when Mr. John Riddle informed the authorities that the dispatcher had been shot, he made this story up.
I mean, like I said, sir, I did not know he had any guns at that time.
For the first time you knew anything was happening, you heard the shot.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll hear from the folks who want to speak in support. First, we'd like to hear from the parole project.
Good afternoon, Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. Here to let you know that Mr. Caston has been accepted into Parole Project as a client. His record during his incarceration has been exemplary. He's completed a plethora of programs, as was already stated by the board. He's got a vocational certification in carpentry. He's taken substance abuse, anger management, living in balance 1 and 2, thinking for a change, victim awareness. He's been commended for his work both at the governor's mansion and for his work at Jetson LCIW. From the time he's had his opportunity to get out of CCR, he's shown that he's been focused completely and primarily on becoming the person he is today, and we support Mr. Caston in his efforts and will provide the support needed upon his should he get a recommendation and be released, provide the support he needs on his reentry.
All right, thank you. Could we hear from Miss Vicky Bible?
Good morning. My name is Vicky Bible. I'm a sister to Sonny Caston, and I want to thank you for your time this morning. My brother was very young when he went in and completed many classes and programs to prepare himself for a better life if he's given this opportunity. He has family that love him and miss him very much. I will gladly provide a home and support that he needs for any necessity. And I want to thank you for allowing me to speak on my brother Sonny Caston's behalf.
Thank you. And Miss Marissa?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Is there anything you'd like us to know?
Well, I remember my Uncle Sonny since I was a small child. We write all through the years. He's made things for myself. He's made things for my daughter. Sends me cards on every birthday. We email through JPay. We visited many, many times. My mother and I have driven down there and had several hours visits with he and his brother, Uncle Frank. And it would just be wonderful to have him at home to share time with us. And
You could open.
you know, yes, and I can also help with, my husband also owns a construction company, so we also would have room for him to work as well if needed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Yes,
both.
ma'am.
All right, we'd like to hear from the opposition. Could we hear from Mr. Gathens? Sir?
Over here.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from you. If you'd step up. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm John Gathens, the oldest brother of Sheriff Jeffrey Gathens. Jeffrey was murdered at about 2:30 a.m. on Sunday, June 19th, 1988. That was a Father's Day. I say murdered because when investigators arrived, Jeffrey's gun was strapped in his holster, so he was no threat to them. So he just pulled the shotgun and shot him. This being a day that would never been the same for anyone in my family. It's a day that Jeffrey was robbed of not only part of his career, but to have a chance of being a father and a grandfather. He was killed while carrying out his duties, jailer, dispatcher for the Welfare Parish Sheriff's Office. He was working 2 jobs and going to college to get his degree in criminal justice. He was a man of God and a loving husband. My brother, whom I helped raise, with his life was taken. The 3 people who were in on the murder were Frank Bancroft, age 19, Frank Caston, age 21, and Sonny Caston, age 20. According to former state investigator Bob Bucket, they had been planning a long time to commit this crime. If one looks at Sonny's past record, you will see he had been in trouble with the law since the age of 12, 13. Sheriff Gary Bennett, the sheriff at the time of the crime, said these boys have no respect for others' property or rights. The Castons were given the name of the James gang and were encouraged to live up to it. On that Father's Day in 1988, these three men used my brother as their puppet, living up to the name they were given. All three men were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the benefit of pardon on the brother. They took not only the life of my brother that day, but a man in uniform who wore it with pride. They took the life of my mother, who was never the same again. She couldn't be a grandmother to my son because he resembled Jeffrey, and she couldn't bear to see him. They robbed his wife, chance of having a family, and they robbed our father's heart and sold it. I feel that as Sonny is released, he will follow his brother's action in that he was released. A short time later, he killed his girlfriend and was recommitted. We got help him get released. With all of the help that is out there, people being released from prison, I feel that Sonny will not be able to adjust to living in society due to the fact that all of his family, and most of his family, as I understand now, has died and moved from this area. And he has no one but his friend that he ran with while he was getting into trouble. My family was assured that the sentence that was passed down on the three boys involved and sentenced by three different judges was to be without the benefit for over part. I know that jails are full and overcrowded, but Sonny took the life of Jeffrey, a man who served protected people in society. Sonny had no respect for life, and I don't think that had changed. My family and I are concerned for our safety if he is able to get released. Yet his brothers have said numerous times that we are the cause for them being in jail and would get even. He knows prison life, and he gets out and comes back to my family to get even. Going back to prison is not facing. He will just have another coping, and I ask for you to protect me and my family. After his testimony on the bill, he said you'll be working on the farm in Rouge, which is less than 50 miles from my house. And I still feel for my safety.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ms. Linda, did you want to speak? Could we hear from the DA's office, West Carroll, Ms. Clement?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Molly Clement, I'm an assistant DA here in West Carroll. I was not present when this crime took place or was prosecuted. However, my boss, Ms. Penny Ducier, was, and she at the time she worked on the prosecution and she worked all the appellate process. It is Ms. Ducier's opinion that Mr. Caston has never shown remorse for this crime, will he ever? And I know that one of you board members questioned Mr. Caston about this a few minutes ago. It is correct that the evidence showed that the Caston brothers were in fact directing Mr. Bancroft at the time of this murder. Obviously, we are vehemently opposed to any relief granted to Mr. Caston. We have sent numerous letters over the years and have opposed this. I will reiterate how closely a farm in Rouge is located to the citizens of West Carroll. And I believe, those opposed share the same feelings that the elder Mr. Gathings does. And I can't say it any better than he did, but we absolutely oppose. And I have Mr. Jerry Gathings here with me, and I believe he would like to say some words as well.
Okay, Mr. Gathings?
Yes, sir. My name is Jerry Gathings. Deputy Jeff Gathings, that was my younger brother for 7 years. He was born September the 2nd. And he was killed on June 19th at the age of 23 years and 9 months old, just beginning his life. And the night up there in that jail cell, he was sentenced to death. There was no court. There was no appeal. There was nothing nobody could do about it. He was shot and he was killed. And in September of 1993, when Sonny was tried, a jury found him guilty of murder and sentenced him to life in prison without the benefit of parole. I think that was the intention of the jury. I don't think they intended on Sonny to be out in the public. That was what they done. We take the jury of 12 people. They decide that. I didn't. Nobody else did. And I know this panel can decide to turn him loose. You know, and that's by law, I guess, is what we got to do. But I don't want it to happen. I've got 3 children. I've got 2 daughters and a son. None of them does. And my son actually works with the Morehouse Parish Sheriff's Department. And I don't want to see that contribute to a problem for me either. And I think it would. Now, the people of the state of Louisiana has passed a law that states that if a police officer is killed in the performance of his duty, his penalty is supposed to be the death penalty. I don't know why it wasn't applied in this case, or if it was on the docket in this case. I don't know. I'm not for sure. I couldn't find that information out. But I believe that states the people of Louisiana that voted for this law, and the people that I know that support the family and want him to stay where he's at for the rest of his life. And that's what I think needs to be done. And I hope this panel will stand good to that, stand true to what the panel of 12, the jury of 12, their conviction and their recommended sentence for Sonny. My whole family and I had to live with the sentence that was given to my brother that night. And again, you know, he was shot, he was killed. Again, no appeal, no trial. That's just the way it was. Me and my whole family has had to live with that. My mom, my dad. And like my brother said a while ago, it was Father's Day morning when he was killed. June 17th, 1988. 23-year-old boy starting his life. Just bought a house. And all that was taken away from him. My brother was taken away from us. It was taken away from my mom and my dad. And every year on Father's Day, my dad had to deal with it again, every time. So I would, again, ask the board to please keep the sentence that the jury passed and the jury intended to happen, to please let that continue as it is. I thank y'all. Appreciate you.
Sir, and thank you for your remarks. Before we turn it over to Ms. Connick, Mr. Caston, we'd like to hear your statement if you have.
First off, I take full responsibility for what I did that night. I left that jailhouse, and that was very stupid of me. I'd like to apologize to the Gatlin's family for the pain and the grief I have caused you because of my action. I'm not that young kid of 35 years ago. Through Department of Correction programming, I achieved my GED. Through the programming's victim awareness, thinking for change, and anger management, I have bettered myself. These classes have helped me better myself. Coming up on the streets, I did not have any type of life skills. Today, these programs, I'm a carpenter, electricity, plumber, and heavy equipment. I know how to follow the rules, I do so. I know how to respect law enforcement as well as the law. And I know I can be a good law-abiding citizen if you all will give me that opportunity to return to my family and my friends. I'd like to thank each and every one of y'all for giving me this opportunity to be before you. Thank the wardens, my supervisors, and my two attorneys who stood beside me and helped me. And I know with God's help, I can be a great law-abiding citizen. And thank you.
All right, Ms. Connor?
Good afternoon, everyone. First, wanted to express my condolences to Gaffney's family. And on behalf of Sonny Caston, your brother didn't deserve what happened to him, and none of you deserves the pain that you've had to suffer all these years. But I did want to say that there have been a lot of misunderstandings about who Sonny Caston and his brothers were and are, and there have been a lot of misunderstandings about this crime over the years. Sonny Caston has been in trouble since he was 12. He was raised in a family where his father abused substances, beat his mother horribly, left the family, and his mother was given a decision about which of her children to raise. She picked her other children. She did not pick Sonny Caston. And he was raised having to survive on the streets. So at the age of 12, 13, he was hunting. He was selling what he hunted to survive. He was burglarizing property to survive. And he went to the West Carroll jail in 1988. He was pre-trial. He was not facing a sentence. His brother Frank, I think, had 30 days left on his sentence. And they were put in a cell with Frank Bancroft, who, by all accounts, after all of the events of these trials came out, had very severe mental illness. He had attempted suicide multiple times, and he was released from jail. He had nowhere to go, and he would come back to the jail. The night that this happened, he had robbed his stepfather of a pickup truck and a rifle. He had written a suicide note. He was preparing to die that night. And when he came into the jail with a rifle, he broke the Caston brothers out of that jail cell, had a rifle, was wild-eyed. And Sonny, when he's told me this story over the years, he was scared for his own life. He is convinced to this day that if he hadn't left, that his brother would have been killed that night by Frank Bancroft. And while they may have discussed escape, they may have had some of the tools necessary for escape. Like Sonny said, they had them in their cell for over a month. This was not an active plan until Frank Bancroft on his own came in, and for no apparent reason, because by all accounts that Sonny has ever given me, Deputy Gathings was a lovely person who did not deserve for this to have happened. So there was no reason, and they were all trusted there. There was no reason for this to have happened. As soon as the three of them left, as soon as Frank and Sonny could get away from Bancroft, they did. Sonny and Frank Caston turned themselves in. And thereafter he pled guilty to a burglary that he committed with his uncle in order to keep his uncle and his younger brother out of trouble. Since he has been at Louisiana State Penitentiary, by the account of the warden, he has been a model prisoner. He has gotten 15 write-ups, one which was just to get him back into closed cell restriction for reasons I understand to this day, but 15 write-ups over a period of 35 years. It's remarkable. There's not one single violent charge. I know that you see lots of individuals who go to Angola and continue to act in violent ways. There are all kinds of opportunities to commit crimes, to get in fights, to disobey authority. Sonny Caston has done everything available to him to better himself. He's taken every class there is. He has committed himself to victim awareness. He has committed himself to trying to understand the ramifications of what he was involved in. He has taken numerous substance abuse classes, even though he's not himself a substance abuser, because his family suffered from substance abuse and he wanted to understand those issues. He does have his first stop will be at the Louisiana Parole Project. And hearing from the victim's family today about their concerns about his release, if he should get released and going to that farm. I know from Sonny that he does not want to cause any more pain to that family. And if that is something that they would make them feel unsafe in any way, I think that he would be open. He has other supporters who are out of state, one in Denver, one in New York City that I know about. And I think that his plan could be modified to take him out of state if that is something that is important to the family and important to the board. So I've known Sonny, I've been representing him for 10 years. He has one of the most remarkable positive attitudes of anyone I've ever met. I don't know how he came through what he survived as a child to have such a positive attitude, and that's reflected in the character letters from the governor in his free time. He does construction work on Beeline. He is absolutely trusted in every way and appreciated by the prison staff. So I know that this is a difficult decision for all of you. I know it's very difficult when the other side has such strong opposition, and they do have strong opposition. Obviously, Deputy Getty Things was very well loved. But that shouldn't be the only determination for this board. The board should, I believe, consider what Sonny has done all of this time without any hope of ever being released. This is a self-motivated, self-initiated, spiritual and rehabilitation journey that he's been on since he was 20. So I hope the board will consider all of those things. Thank you very much for your time and consideration this afternoon.
Thank you. All right, prepared to vote? On the executive session. We have a motion for executive session.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any opposition? No, hearing none, we'll be in executive session for a few moments to discuss confidential matters. All right, we are back in regular session and we are prepared to vote. Mr. Freeman will be voting first.
Okay, this is a very tough crime because he has done a ton in prison. So, he's done, above and beyond. The biggest problem I got is that, in his final statement, he mentions, I want to go back and see my friends. Well, I don't know what new friends you've made, but you sure don't need to go see your old friends. And I just got to be quite honest with you. I don't believe the story that you knew nothing that was going to happen. I mean, I just can't make myself believe you didn't know nothing was going to happen. And I can't believe that then when the attorney gets up there You know, it even further got to me because the fact was you in there on pretrial and your brother's in there on 30 days. So why are you planning to escape anyway? I mean, where you going? You're gonna be out in no time. So I just can't get over those two things, and my vote today is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman, Mrs. Jackson.
All these cases are extremely hard. They really are. We haven't had an easy one today. And I do appreciate so much the input from the victim's family. I know this is just as raw to you today as it was, 35 years ago. And I do understand, I want you to understand that I do not take this responsibility lightly, and I do not take your pain lightly at all. But our role, or my role, or role of the board, is not necessarily to retry the case. It's to look at what we accept. He's committed this crime, it's a terrible crime, but what has he done since then? He was 19 or 20 years old when this happened. And I would like to think that none of us are the same people 35 years later as we get older, that we grow, we mature, the things that we do at 20, we would never dream of doing at this stage in our life. And I just have to look at who Mr. Caston is today. And I see someone who has a good disciplinary record, who has done a good work within the institution, who has accepted responsibility, even though he was not the actual person who pulled the trigger. He recognizes that, his participation played a role in it. And so as I look at what he's accomplished, what the fact that he was 19 and the amount of time that he had served, and that he is not the same person, my vote today would be to recommend commutation to 99.
Mr. Rushing.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Caston.
Yes, sir.
I cannot bridge the gap between you who are directly or indirectly responsible for the death of a law enforcement officer. A crime that you could have got the death penalty for. In the overwhelming express opposition from the judge, the DA's office, and law enforcement. Law enforcement is always going to be in opposition, but very rarely do we hear from the judge. And the judge in this case is strongly opposed. The opposition that we received from the victim's family, we received 9 statements of opposition vehemently opposed to any reduction in sentence, and very rarely do we get 9 members of a family who have submitted letters or statements of opposition. Because of this express opposition, I'm going to deny your request.
All right, Mr. Caston, so it takes 4 favorable votes for a favorable decision. You've received 1 vote that was favorable, 2 votes that were not favorable. So the outcome of today's proceeding is that your application for clemency has been denied.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, and let's unpack this. Now, here's here's like the bottom line what happened, right? It's not so different from the crazy escape that happened in Louisiana right now, in the sense that there was someone who was there to help around the prison, like a handyman that helped facilitate the escape. But I guess outside of that, not so many similarities, but we have the appeal, we have the information. Thank you, Sir Richard, for jumping back in the spreadsheet and providing a lot of research on this case. Lady Holly's in Australia, so we have to, sometimes wait because of the time difference. And Sir Richard was back on the pony like the good old days. And let me just share with you actually this spreadsheet. Since the jailbreak, this is what we put together for you. We have up here the list of the inmates that have escaped, right? And all their crimes and all, Lady Holly puts everything into these drives. So we have all that information. And then right down here, if you look at all these rows, each one of these is a parole hearing. And all of these are parole hearings for inmates that have escaped and then have been recaptured, of course, and are now having a parole hearing like the one that we've seen. So if you want to see more hearings about those who have escaped and then face the parole board however many years later, check out the jail escape playlist. It's a new playlist, but I'll keep bringing you these hearings because there are actually a lot to cover. Actually, earlier today, I just uploaded a case of someone who successfully escaped and ran away to Mexico and was there for 15 years. That was an interesting parole hearing. I uploaded it to members only. Don't worry, it's going to be public soon in a few days. You don't need to become a member to see it. But that was an interesting one. How rare do you see those who escape and actually make it to Mexico and successfully live in Mexico for 15 years? Well, let's come back to earth on this case. Let's go through the appeal. The appeal is for his brother, his older brother, who I think might have been the ringleader in this, really, and you might agree with me after hearing the appeal. But it doesn't take away. The problem is that what we see here is that Sonny Caston includes his brother in the entire hearing as not being the ringleader. He keeps basically saying, "I had no idea what was going to happen." So let's go over the appeal. Late April and May of 1988. Think of that, it was 1988. The defendant, his younger brother Sonny, whose parole hearing we just saw, and Frank, who shared a cell in West Carroll Parish Jail in Oak Grove, Louisiana. During this time, the men discussed escaping. Thereafter, Bancroft became a trustee with greater freedom to move about the jails. Bancroft's a third person, not the brothers, not the person whose parole hearing we just saw. Bancroft utilized his position as a trustee to supply the Caston brothers with a knife, a chisel, and a hacksaw blade. However, the knife was discovered and confiscated, but they still had the chisel and the hacksaw blade. On June 14, 1988, Bancroft was released from jail. So again, this is the trustee and handyman. He's released. On the night of June 18th, which would have been 4 days after him being released from jail, he stole his father's truck and shotgun. He left an unalive note at his mother's house. This is pure meditation. He left an unalive note. He then went to the jail where he visited the deputy sheriff who was serving as a radio operator that night shift jailer. He's friends with the jailer, right? He's a trustee. Then he got out. He was someone who would do things in the jail. So there's no nervousness or suspicion, nothing. Bancroft also assisted a trustee in repairing an air conditioning unit. So he even repairs an air conditioning unit. Bancroft then went to the Caston cell several times that night. He informed them that he was going to help them escape. They discussed various ways to incapacitate the things. Among the methods suggested was striking in the head with a cotton picker, which was used in the jail as a hammer, which Bancroft had obtained from the jail storage. So they had this hammer thing, or with a hatchet, or with an axe. And they also discussed using the shotgun. Apparently, Bancroft returned to his truck, retrieving the shotgun. He then went into the radio room where he shot Deputy Gathings in the head. And they said there was a contact wound, indicating that the shotgun was held to his skin. So this psychopath gets the shotgun, places it against his really what would have been like his friend's face, at least someone he knew very well, and pulled the trigger. Why? Bancroft then locked the trustees, so the guy who he helped fix the air conditioning with, he locked the trustees of the jail in their cell and freed the brothers. Again, one of the brothers, Sonny's, who we just saw at the parole hearing, who claimed that he had no idea this was going to happen. The defendant obtained the shotgun from Bancroft and led the way as the three men fled the jail. So his brother now took the shotgun. So that's a sign of his brother being the ringleader. That makes me believe his brother knew what was going on. I mean, he grabbed the shotgun from him and led the way out of jail. That's not a follower. The authorities were alerted to the escape after the trustees persuaded the two prisoners left behind in the Caston cell to leave the unlocked cell and phone for help. So the trustees who were locked in the cell, this is like a cartoon or like a movie almost, said to the other, hey guys, go call for help because their cell was unlocked. And as you can see, they could have left the jail. They didn't. See, it takes a certain kind of criminal mind. The other people in jail didn't walk out. The trustees didn't walk out because they know it's stupid. It's the dumbest thing you can do, but or you have to be incredibly desperate, faced with nothing else to lose. Aggravated escape. I don't know what it was in the 80s, but today it's a maximum of 10 years in prison, which I bet you after this breakout, the governor is going to increase that because what's 10 years when you're facing a lot of time? But there it is. So they didn't leave. Is my point. They do have head on their shoulders, but these fools, and keep in mind, Sonny was getting out of jail that month. He wasn't serving a lot of time. So on June 20th, 1988, Bancroft was arrested later that day. So he got out a whole 2 days, I think. The Castons surrendered to the authorities, so they did surrender. And the prisoner's statement led to the recovery of the murder weapons from a ditch and to the discovery of the hatchet and cotton picker spindle, which was behind the air conditioner unit. So, a jail that was clearly not being monitored properly. A search of the jail cell formerly occupied by the defendant and his brother revealed a hacksaw blade and chisel under the bunk mattress, under a bloody mattress. So it's like nothing's changed, 40 something years later, and we see another jail in Louisiana that is not being monitored correctly. And this must be bringing up so much PTSD for this poor family. The officers also found a drawing on the wall near the bunk, the drawing entitled Heavenly Outlaws Graveyard and James Gang, depicting a graveyard with several tombstones bearing the first name of Bancroft, the defendant, his brother, Sonny, and other Caston brothers who were incarcerated elsewhere. The defendant was indicted on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated escape, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit aggravated escape. On May 15, 1990, the defendant's motion for change of venue was granted, and And as we know, they're all found guilty, and he is still serving. He is serving with his brother in Angola. So there is more information that Sir Richard found, but I think that this is really enough to go through. There are some clipped articles, and he has a dating page out of Angola. Ladies, if you're interested, he is single. I can read it to you. I won't screen share it because I don't know YouTube's policy with this stuff. But let's see. He's 6 foot tall, green eyes, brown hair, very loyal, caring, and easygoing. A country boy at heart. I've been told by those who know that I have a great sense of humor and a positive outlook on life. I would like to hear from pen pals who are the same, pen pals who are open minded, and who want to communicate on various topic levels. Interests include, but are not limited to, music, reading, all types of books, writing, learning, everything I can, sports, arts and crafts, martial arts. If I sound like someone you would like to get to know, please don't hesitate to drop me a few lines and introduce yourself. I'll be waiting patiently to hear from you. So again, ladies, he's single. If you're looking to date a man in Angola. Um, Here's the question. Do you think that it's possible? It's funny, he doesn't look like a leader. He doesn't look like an intimidating guy. Do you think that he actually had no idea that he's just like a major follower and he had no idea it was going to go down and he just walked out of the jail because he's obsessed with his older brother and I here's the thing, if you even want to believe that, the next step I would say is, well, then he should have stated that, but he didn't. He talks, and maybe I miss it, but he talks in as if him and his brother both didn't know what was going to happen. That he and his brother were just like had no clue that the man who wrote the unalive note and pulled the trigger was the ringleader. And that's where you can't, you can't. I can't get over that part. And you might then say, well, he's serving time with his brother in Angola, and he's not going to rat on his brother on the parole hearing, and maybe he's still afraid of him, or maybe who knows. But I can't get that. That part's just so confusing to me. You got to believe that they knew about it and encouraged it to go down, and all for nothing. It's just a waste. And so many of these escapes are a waste. And people aren't thinking clearly. It's the criminal mind. Even in this recent jailbreak, there were some that you might say had nothing to lose. There's one man who actually has 5 bodies in his jacket. I mean, one where he went to trial was acquitted, even though there were eyewitness testimony he killed his godfather. Then he had 4 other bodies in his jacket, but not convictions. But he's connected to 5 dead people. Yeah, he maybe should escape. But there were some other guys that had 5 years left on their sentence, 8 years left on a bunch that haven't even pled guilty or not guilty to the crimes they were indicted on, and that's part of the problem that's coming. That's being made very apparent is how disorganized the Louisiana jails are and their court system and the governor's going passing all these executive orders because the idea that people are sitting in jail after getting sentenced, for example, are sitting in jail for 6-7 months before getting transferred to prison. There's no excuse for that. And can you even imagine, by the way, the mayhem that was going on in this jail, that people were left unattended for hours? They didn't know that the jailbreak happened for hours and hours and hours. Imagine how dangerous that jail is. But there you have it. Yeah, if you want to see more jailbreak coverage and hearings, check out the jailbreak list, and I'll continue to post because there are many more hearings that we can cover about those who have escaped prison or jail. I think the hearing I'll cover next is the boy, he was 15 at the time, who kidnapped the warden and to escape Angola. He got shot and lost his arm. If you can imagine his existence for the past 50 years in Angola and what his life must have been like for the 5 years after he had kidnapped the warden, lost his arm, they probably had him locked up in solitary without pain meds. I can't imagine the hell he went through. So we'll cover his hearing next. And with that, I'll let you go.
My brother was taken away from us. He was taken away from my mom and my dad. And every year on Father's Day, my dad had to deal with it again, every time. So I would, again, ask the board to please keep the sentence that the jury passed and the jury intended to happen, to please let that continue as it is. I thank y'all. Appreciate you.